welcome back to the Connected Sphere. This podcast is a little bit different from the normal format. I kind of just wanted you to get to know the host a little bit and kind of a bit about what this podcast is about. Endless podcasts about, I'm sure everybody's got one. And yeah, a little bit about why maybe this one's going to be a bit different and why it might resonate with you or why it might not. Um, so yeah, why does the connected sphere exist? Um, it started because I guess there's a few reasons behind it, really. I realize sometimes when I'm listening to ideas from people that maybe before, well, what might stop people exploring an idea in full tends to be this idea of kind of locking in knowledge, like what you know becomes locked in your mind, and then what you don't believe gets dismissed. Um, and I've always found, well, recently I found it more jarring, um, that kind of idea of listening and dispersing the information kind of as you hear it, categorizing it in a box. Um, whereas all the ideas that have kind of held value for me, maybe over the last sort of 5 years, have been very often it's maybe something that I don't believe immediately, but I'll um, hold off on categorizing it as something I don't believe. Hold on to that, see how that information fits, kind of see how it feels. Um, Keep hold of that idea for a week. Don't dismiss it. See how it sits in the body. See how it feels. There's something about knowledge that feels. I think people have forgotten that knowledge can feel a certain way, and sometimes the importance is more about that. You know, um, Maybe there are ideas in culture which, however much might be true or people believe, um, make them feel a certain way and don't sort of add to their life. So I don't want to be one of these people that kind of believe everything I hear, but I kind of want to keep everything open, all the ideas open in my mind so that later on it can connect. Just connect. Yeah. There's that idea of, I don't know who said it, but one of the scientists, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but whenever he was thinking about scientific formulas or whatever, he would hold an apple and then fall asleep. And as soon as he drops the apple, it hits the floor and he wakes up. And in that sleeping and waking, he's kind of processing and kind of connecting all the dots. So he would solve a lot of his theories that way, really. Um, so I guess, yeah, I want it to be an open-minded podcast. I don't want it to be prove this, prove that, um, disprove this, disprove that. If I've got a guest on, I want to explore the idea in full, um, and I want to have guests on that a lot of people won't believe. I want to explore and let them kind of go into detail, explore the idea in full. So I think they're the kind of podcasts that I enjoy. Um, Knowledge isn't a battle for space in your mind. I think sometimes it can be more about, yeah, like a felt sense of what's right and and how it feels to you. I recognize we can't run the world that way, so it's not, you can't expect society to kind of run like that. But I think there should be patience in ideas and just a general exploring nature to it. Um, so that's one of the reasons I started this podcast. One of the other reasons was actually I had quite a lonely couple of years. Um, at the time, I was living in a van that I'd converted, and for some reason, it felt really difficult to connect to people. I think um, I was going through a bit of a hard time as well at the same time, but something about authenticity was trying to come alive in me. Like, what are the conversations that I want to be having with people? Um, I think a lot of society, we have to be a certain way, we have to think a certain way, um, to kind of fit in, but then also to hold the same narrative as everyone else. How do we hold society's narrative? Um, and during that time of being quite lonely and isolated, I was working with psychedelics, and um, that was really helping me sort of understanding my authentic side. So I really wanted to kind of use this podcast in a way to reconnect with the world, find the conversations that I want to be having, um, explore ideas that I want to explore, without any sort of precondition, um, that, I'm talking to this person because their ideas are popular, or I don't want any of that. I want to explore the ideas because they're important to me, and I think they should be important to other people, maybe, um, but not based on popularity. And so the idea of the connected sphere, part of it was the idea was like, if you're reconnecting to society, how do you want to do it? Um, and eventually, I realized it's one step at a time, isn't it? It's like connecting with one person, building that, um, spending that time and that patience to kind of get to know that person, and then expanding your web that way. So yeah, I think that's a lot of the idea. Um, I still feel slightly isolated for sure. I don't think that's fully gone away. Definitely in a better place, a more sociable place, and definitely feel less lonely. But part of me thinks that it's something that society is going through, where everybody's feeling a little bit more disconnected. Everybody's interactions are quicker and more fleeting. I certainly know that, um, in the media it talks a lot about, men feeling lonely, but actually I just think loneliness doesn't discriminate. I think it hits everyone in certain ways. I know people as they get older, sort of struggle to maintain friendship groups when they've got one partner and things like that. So yeah, I guess it's just a way to, um, get everyone along for the ride. Anyone that's You don't have to be lonely to be watching the connected sphere, but something about it is, we're sharing that idea that we can connect, and we can find people within our sphere, um, and we can find hugely powerful ideas within the connected sphere of people that we know. Um, a lot of really popular podcasts, they have big famous guests on that are really good at speaking about their niches, um, and I sometimes think that, however great that is, we want to hear someone at the top of their game and on the top of their discoveries. But we also want to find people that we know that we can connect with, and sort of build that journey. How do we get into learning about anything from consciousness? We don't just immediately jump to the top professor in the world at that. We want to find the people at every level of society that have these wild and interesting ideas. So everybody, I guess everybody likes to think they're open-minded, um, but I think we have certain biases. If we um, shut off our mind to only the experts, and we only listen to the experts, then we kind of miss all that important knowledge along the way. Um, yeah. This, for example, this solo podcast, is probably taken me a long, long time to get to the point where I think I could just talk about my ideas. Um, to nobody, because actually it's really hard talking to who you don't know. When I was living in New Zealand, I had a radio show. Um, it was late night. Who knows if anyone was even listening? It was music alongside like movie ideas and things like that. But I found that even introducing the show and talking to potentially who I don't know, found it really difficult. You know, that sort of radio voice where people just talk and talk and talk. Um, I found the idea of that really challenging. So this is, however awful it might sound, or however amateur I might be at talking to a screen, um, is something that I've wanted to sort of overcome as a hurdle for a long time. So you are part of that journey now. And thanks for that. Um, yes. So I've put down a few points that I kind of wanted to cover. Um, One of the things about listening to a podcast is people probably follow a podcast because of who it is. You know, they want to know about the podcaster. Um, and the more I've thought about that, is I think you'd get to know who I am by listening to the podcast anyway. Um, and there's no job CV um, kind of dating profile version that I'm going to tell you something and you're going to want to listen to this podcast. But I guess it's about the way of thinking. I think that's really important. If you've ever if you've ever thought that thinking and ideas should be more expansive, shouldn't shut down um, ideas before they're fully understood, then they're the kind of interviews that I want to be having. Yes, so that's kind of how it's started and how it's formed. Um, Along the way already, we've already had some really interesting guests. So the first podcast was Hazel. She studied shamanism for many years. It's a topic that I'm super interested in, and yes, really interesting chats. And it's a perfect way to start the podcast, really, because there were lots of ideas that I wanted to explore. And one of the things that I'm fascinated in and kind of have always been fascinated in really is the hidden world, the hidden connections. Um, I think we're all born, and I think maybe by the time we're 20, we figure out the material world quite well. And then we're left with, what's behind that, what's behind the ideas, what's behind um, so, shamanism talks a lot about 9 realms of reality, or 9 different dimensions that are kind of hidden behind reality. Um, and yeah, there has always been a mystery and a kind of fascinating aspect to reality for me. It's always been more interest to the stuff that I can't see and the possibilities of something existing than somebody telling me, oh, look, they've now got a picture of this atom or whatever it is. Incredible that they got the picture of the atom, if that's happened. Um, but immediately, kind of, my mind tries to find more. Um, and I think a lot of people are like that. There's kind of an existential longing um, for knowledge, and it doesn't necessarily need to be knowledge as in like facts, um, but things that help people build their reality of the world. Things that um, a bit like religion, where it kind of gives people hope. But then also behind that, you've got the people that have studied these religions are looking for the things behind the veil. So yeah, part of this podcast, part of the ideas that will kind of inform the guest is yeah, kind of hidden knowledge, not necessarily always niche. Um, But if I'm doing a mental health episode, for example, I wouldn't just be talking about the common things around mental health. Um, I want to be exploring the depths of it and kind of all the hidden things that we don't talk about. Easier said than done. Yeah, for sure. Um, all the interviews won't be like that. I'm not going to be making discoveries left, right, and center and publishing loads of scientific papers. Um, but I do think we're in a world at the moment where it seems like we're on the cusp of so many good ideas, and there are. I don't just want to be talking about science, but if I use science as a example, there's probably more um, published papers about science than there are people really trying to connect all the different papers to all the different papers and kind of form ideas about the connections between the things. Um, I read an article about something similar where they were saying it's kind of the people that are cross-referencing lots of different data sets are going to be the people that are coming out with um, all these new ideas. And I think that's why podcasts have become hugely popular because it takes time to dig through this, and not just in a way where you compare that bit of data with that bit of data. Um, it takes time to talk through, and it takes time to sort of really explore an idea, um, and find any hidden connections between them. So yeah, I'm interested in a lot of things, but connections are the one. Yes. Expansive thinking. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that try and hold their mind open to things, but it can be hard for sure. There's a comfort to locking something down. There's a comfort to kind of um, locking down what you know and knowing that you know the entirety of that little section of it, and organizing that in your mind. Um, but I've always found that quite uncomfortable. I find it quite comfortable when there's mystery and not all of something is known. So um, if you're listening to this and that kind of resonates at all with you, um, that you're more interested by the mystery than the known facts, then yeah, this will be a podcast to follow for sure. And I'll be doing my best um, to keep on that track of complete open-mindedness. I don't want to have any sort of section of society that I wouldn't talk to. Um, I don't want to be polarized by political ideas, or the value of the idea is more important than who's saying it, or kind of what niche they fall into in society. And I think people are getting a bit bored of that, as if like, oh, you listen to that person, and that says that thing about you. Um, I think we need to listen to everybody. Um, if there's a speaker that you originally don't like the ideas of, spend a few hours listening to them, fully discover maybe that you really, really don't disagree. You do disagree with them, but there might be something in there that resonates, that gets you to see that as a person, and you can kind of understand. Oh, that's kind of how they've got that idea. Um, yeah, the mind at large, or the the idea that consciousness is all kind of spread out and we get to experience parts of it, even if you're truly atheist in that idea, um, with consciousness just being inside your body, and we're all individual people. um, yeah, even if that's your belief, then we get to share it with other people. We get to rub up against other ideas and other consciousnesses, and so locking down what you believe is probably the most dangerous thing at the moment because yeah, I think we need connection more now than ever to fully sort of overcome, yeah, all the hurdles that we're facing in society. Um, yes. So that's some of what the podcast is going to be about. Each time, it's not going to be about a particular thing. It's not going to be one of these podcasts that you can say, right, I'm tuning into this to always get ideas about consciousness. It's going to be every topic, because everything's connected, and that's how we'll learn. So we'll learn by um, dotting between different ideas, different topics, different fields, and kind of learning all the crossovers and kind of seeing how it affects us. Yes. Um, I think from an early age, I've always been curious. And I think as I get older, I realize not how unique that can be. I'm not trying to float my own boat and say I'm very unique, but um, how unique, really authentic curiosity can be. Um, that every idea is trying to be held open in my mind, and what I've realized is actually not many of them conflict. You can hold a lot of things open. I definitely hold open um, lots of the religions, spirituality, less so atheism, but there's still a part of me that holds that open. It's all it all feels not just easier. It's not like it feels easier to hold it open, but it feels more right, as if you're not shutting out any knowledge. I mean, think of if you're a scientist and you're learning by seeing, and you see the tree and you see the leaves, and the next thing you need to see is the root. So you start digging up the root, um, and you think the root has caused the tree. But if you can dig deeper, you know that actually all the light has caused the tree, and the nutrients underneath the root has caused the tree. So there's something about like holding open knowledge. If you imagine it like a web, um, holding open that knowledge allows you to jump, and if you need to skip analyzing the root, maybe you're stuck on the root, and start analyzing the root causes. It sounds really basic and simple when I say it, and sometimes that's just how I think I sound, quite basic and simple. But I know in my mind there's a kind of depth there that's beyond what I'm saying. Yeah. Um, yes. So, um, oh yeah. So the guests we've had already. Yes, we've had Hazel, the who's been learning how to be a shaman. Is a shaman essentially, and is incredible at what she does. And then we've had Ricky, the writer, like a children's writer, adult writer as well. Incredible stuff. He's a total inspiration. Just talking to him overcame so many writer's block hurdles that I've had. He's really inspirational to listen to about the craft of writing, and about really enjoying the process. He's somebody that loves the process. Um, so through him, I learned that you've always got to remember the process. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. Um, Never be focusing on the outcome. Um, yeah. And then we had Richard, who's really wise and really knowledgeable about. Why do I always forget this person's name? Hang on. It's the ideas of. Hang on one sec. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I just forget really obvious things. Yeah, you'll see a lot of that on the podcast for sure. Especially on these solo episodes where I think nerves play an effect for sure. But yeah, the ideas of Carl Jung. Um, so the idea that ideas are, I don't know about, maybe he was talking about it in a physical sense, but he's relating it to a physical sense as if they are like structures that we create in society. Um, Really fascinating chat. Richard's a great guy. Um, Learned a lot from him, and yeah, so along the way, you might find that some of the topics are at introduction level. Sometimes they're um, by specialists that are diving deep, um, and yeah, it's not always going to be at the level that you're at. You might be way more advanced in your reading on a lot of these ideas. Um, but I'll always endeavor to explore as best as I can. And however that comes out, then yeah, I hope it's good. I hope you enjoy it. Um, yes, it's uh, it's been on hold for a while. So since recording the first three episodes, had some life events go on that I needed to take time out for. So now this is kind of the relaunch. I'm now living in Bristol, and I'll be looking for guests to come on the show. So if you're interested in coming on, you'll always get an open-minded conversation with me. You'll never get any conflict, and we'll just explore whatever ideas you want to explore. And I've got the ability to do podcasts remotely as well, so we'll be checking in with people across the world. Got some guests coming up from America that are going to be super interesting. Probably the next podcast, depending on when I release this one, we're interviewing Lee Mansfield. I think he's going to be quite a regular guest because he's got a lot of knowledge. We did a podcast about kind of the history of psychedelics. Um, Within that is a lot of information about kind of tracing the roots of shamanism. Really, a lot of it, a lot of psychedelic use gets traced back to shamans. So, in a way, kind of like the earliest religious ideas. Um, and yeah, I've found that really interesting because I think the effects of psychedelics on culture. I don't think we've really got a grasp on how huge it was. Like if you imagine looking at ancient Egypt and just looking at them without psychedelics, you might think that they were just kind of making up gods and they had ideas about gods. And but then with the idea of psychedelics, you realize that oh no, they would have had a real visceral connection to those gods. They would have all probably had encounters or visions and strong meetings with them and things like that. So it's understanding. I think that helps us understand ancient culture as not just oh, they were silly. They had these ideas, and now we think this. It's like understandably they had these ideas because they actually focused on kind of expanding consciousness, exploring different realms, however real we think those realms are. Um, so, for example, the Egyptians had lots of images about the blue lotus flower, and a lot of their a lot of their stories of the underworld and things come from, they had like the dream world and the underworld. But the blue lotus has actually been recognized quite recently as something that's really good at causing people to lucid dream. Um, and I've had some of the blue lotus, and it consistently makes you lucid dream. So even my ideas about the dream world have totally changed since since following the idea of the Egyptians with the blue lotus. Like I've had lucid dreams where it's so real that you're in there and you can feel the textures and you're yourself in the dreams as well. You're not kind of this odd dream character that sometimes does something different. You're totally yourself, with your ideas and your memories in the dream. um, and so it feels like another place. Um, it's very visceral, and yeah, you kind of get the chance to kind of build worlds how you want to build worlds. So the idea of it being lucid is you can craft things within the dream. Um, you can change the narrative. Um, you essentially become a world builder in there. So in a way, I look back now at the ancient Egyptians and think that that must have been a huge boost to like not just their intelligence, but like how they form society. Um, if they're able to imagine these things that they can create in the dream space and then wake up with a perfect inbuilt memory of that going right, that can really change a culture for sure if that's part of the culture and that's revered in the culture. Um, yeah. Um, and I guess having an interest in the ancient world is kind of fascinating. I think my main interest in the ancient world is it seems on looking back that there was always a better shared ideology than we have now. Um, we have things that we share. I just don't know how much in in society at the moment. There seems to be a lot of disconnection. There seems to be a lot of isolation, and everybody's kind of encouraged to be their own separate entity. Um, and community brings that together and kind of smushes down that barrier. But um, yeah, I look back at the ancient world as there seemed to be more connection for sure. Could be the smaller groups thing, but could be a lot of things. And it is a lot of things. And yeah, it's difficult having a podcast because you kind of want to explore every idea as you have it. But yeah, there'll be endless podcasts about culture and society and things like that. Yeah, I hope this is going all right. I hope I'm in some way explaining what this podcast is about. A little bit about me, then, I guess, as well to go alongside it. Yeah, I've always been interested in exploring. I think um, whether it be ideas or the globe, I feel like exploring has been something that's a real core part of myself. Went traveling at quite a young age, 21. Kept traveling for a long time, so that was me kind of learning about that part of the world. Um, Not that part of the world, that part of reality. Exploring the globe as a whole. Um, and now I think I'm on a different journey, where I don't need to be in different places to experience the different ideas. I feel like I need to be more present in one place to dive in and get to know things on a deeper level. So I think this podcast will definitely help me do that. And yeah, exploring everything really. It's going to be a good vehicle for exploration. Along the way, I'm going to meet some very interesting people, as are you if you follow the podcast. Um, there tends to be this thing of, if somebody's spent time to have ideas and feel confident about, diving into them and exploring them, then all aspects of their life have that enriched kind of nature to them. Um, and that's no insult to anybody that's not got a huge passion or a huge interest. It's more that, yeah, I think as we develop our interests, I think we become more fully rounded. So yeah, there's going to be some very interesting people along the way. Um, yes. So um, what we'll do is I'll quickly share some of the ways that you can connect with the podcast because I realize that like if we're building a podcast that's meant to be connected, it has to feel like you can connect to it. So one of the ways you can follow is on Instagram. That's on the Connected Sphere podcast. So at the Connected Sphere podcast. Um, on there, I'm just going to be sharing new episode releases, photos, ideas, and you can comment on there. I've got a website, theconnectedsphere.com. On there is really kind of like the hub of everything. You can find a list of all the episodes, explaining what they are, who they are, links to every guest. So that's something I want to be really consistent about. Every guest that comes on, you'll be able to find and connect with them. So underneath each guest on the episodes podcast, you'll see that person's links. You'll be able to follow them, keep track of their ideas, follow them on social media. Um, we wouldn't be, well, I wouldn't be calling this the connected sphere if you didn't have the ability to do that. So that's going to be a consistent, and that's how I want the kind of web to be spread. Each guest as well. I won't be doing this on the podcast, but I'm going to be every guest that I have. I'm going to be seeing who they think I should interview. You know, if they got anyone interesting that they think I should reach out to. Um, so I want it to grow really organically. I want to, have a bunch of guests on, talk to them, and kind of spread that way. See what it connects with. Um, that way, you can follow the narrative, and I can explore in a way that just feels really natural. On the website also is some really amateur art that I've done for the podcast. I'm quite proud of it, really. But yeah, you can find some of that. It's really just some doodles that I did when I was thinking of the name of the podcast. I really wanted to draw in a way that felt like it was art connecting with different things. So there's a lot of the doodle art styles are, maybe there's a heart and maybe that's connecting and it's turning into a leaf. So I want everything to feel connected. So that was the idea behind some of the art that went into the show. And you can see that on the art page on the website. You'll be able to watch all the podcasts on YouTube and Spotify. I might branch out to some different platforms later on once I've figured it all out. But yeah, you'll be able to watch every podcast as a video to see the guests and stuff. That's how I want to be consistent with that as well. I don't just want to have voice. I think um, I actually have a bit of a problem with making phone calls. I really wish I didn't because it definitely plays into some of the isolation that I felt. But because I've felt that difficulty with just the voice, I realized that like half of what we do to connect is audio and visual. If I can, I'd have every guest in person on the show. But there'll definitely be times where we'll be doing remote ones, but we'll always have video as well. Um, yeah, it's just half the fun of it, isn't it? Kind of seeing someone, meeting them, getting to see what's going on. Um, Part of the show as well will be every guest will share three things at the end of the episode where they get to talk um, about three things that have impacted them in some way. So it can be, if we've got um, somebody on talking about um, animals, for example, they might recommend some speakers that are really good at talking about animals, and it's a really basic idea. Animals. They're going to have a show about animals. Yes, as you can see, the nerves are in full swing. But yeah, um, I want there to be. I don't just think ideas are isolated in a bubble. I think when we can see what's formed the ideas, it helps us know whether to attach that idea. Like, I think that's the simplification of the narrative in kind of like um, basic television shows, weren't they? They're just like, oh, come on, talk about this idea. and then get them off, and they come on in 15 minutes and talk about that idea. But I think the magic of podcasts is you get to see how that idea was formed, and it helps inform whether you want to make it a part of your reality or not. So, yeah, I want guests to come on, share three things that the guest can connect with. So you'll be able to connect with the guests. You'll be able to connect with three ideas that they're that have maybe formed them or have been important to them, whether it be books, music. It can be anything as simple to what flavor toast they like. But it can be as deep as, a long held belief that they want people to understand about them, or it can be anything, but three things that help you connect with the guest. Um, so that's kind of the format of the show. There isn't too much else in the format apart from, yeah, it's an open minded forum. So if you're after a podcast that's going to try and challenge their guest in some way, that's not going to be this one. I want this podcast to kind of, it sounds really big headed to inspire, but um, inspire exploring the topic. Um, I don't want any guest to feel like I'm not wanting to explore each idea they're having. I want it all to be explored. So I really think if you, even if you took two people that really disagreed with each other, let's say Stephen, no, not Stephen, Richard Dawkins, or the Pope. You sat them in a room. You wouldn't get to learn about Richard Dawkins' ideas, and you wouldn't get to learn about the Pope's ideas if you just let them talk, because they would be trying to shut each other down. Um, so that's not what we want to be doing. We want to be exploring the ideas in full. So I hope that's what you want to be doing too, and hopefully it will. I hope it inspires some guests to take or remember or just inhabit curiosity more often than not. I think if we veer to that side, instead of kind of battling with ideas, we might be more accepting of culture, and I think we'd be in a more fluid state of, um, rather than right versus left. It would adapt and shift, and it wouldn't get locked in these kind of opposing forces. So I definitely don't want to be doing that with guests. Um, so that's some of the format. Other ways that you can follow, if you want to support the podcast, and at some point I would love to be totally free to do this full time. So if you do want to support the podcast financially, this isn't an advert, you don't have to. But if you do, there's a buy me a coffee link on the website. So if you just want to donate the price of a coffee, just to show your gratitude for one of the episodes, or just to support the show, you can do so. But you totally don't have to either. Yeah, it's all down to you. There is also there will be another part of the website that I'll be launching. I don't know how to do this yet, but I do want to try and create some kind of open forum, where people can discuss all the ideas of the show, talk about bringing guests on. You can at the moment do that in the comments on Instagram for sure, or you can write me a message. You can always contact me on the website. There's a contact me page where, if you think you know a guest, you got a friend, for example, who's really loves talking about a certain thing, and you think he'd make a great guest or she'd make a great guest, invite them on. Let them know. Send me a message. Um, yeah, you'll always be able to give feedback. I really do want this to be kind of not just content that you consume and it kind of passes by. I want this to feel like people are in it and people can have their say. And yeah, that's a real strong value of the connected sphere. And you're in it from the ground up. So yeah, it's a good place to kind of follow and connect and really be along for the ride with this one. Um, yes, yeah, I stopped talking about me, and it's helpful if you know a bit about the host, isn't it? So yeah, I traveled a lot. Um, I got to know the world that way. Um, I've always been for work. I've always tried to make it something that's like having an impact on people. A lot of the jobs I can't really talk about so much on here because some of them are, you've got to have respect for client confidentiality and things like that. But they're all jobs where um, I'm working with people each day to try and improve their lives in some way. Um, that's all I really want to say about that because this podcast is not my work. This is my fun time. Um, Yes. So I'm just going to take a little break, and then I'll be right back with you. Anytime the podcast takes a break, it'll be seamless for you. So stay with us. Okay. So, yeah, I think I'll probably wrap it up here because you'll get to know me more as you watch the show. Um, at some point, I might have a show where somebody sort of interviews me. I realize that sitting here talking about me sounds really egotistical. And if you know me, I'm not hugely egotistical at all. And I don't really like talking about myself. I'd rather just have a chat and do it that way. I do have a lot of ideas. I do have a lot of things that I want to say. But I don't just want to shove it down anyone's throat. I want to kind of let them figure it out. And yeah, be organic. I want to be myself on the podcast. What I've realized actually that doing this podcast has made me realize that there's a real disparity between how I come across or how I speak and what I say to kind of what's going on inside. Um, I'm sure that's a bit with everyone, but sometimes I think, oh, my ideas come out and they sound really basic. But then inside my mind all the time, there's always complex ideas just delving deeper and deeper and deeper, but it's all something that I've found quite difficult to express. Um, I think that's why these long form conversations I love so much because you really get time to go into that. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and blurb lots about me. Um, it's the ideas are more important anyway. So yeah, I'm glad you've checked out this episode. I hope um, you are able to support the podcast in a way of just following it, checking out some of the episodes, seeing if they resonate with you. And yeah, I know it sounds like a cliche, but click the like button, click the follow button. All of that really does help. It helps reach more of the audience, helps reach more of the guests, and yeah, it helps it grow. And yeah, that's really how you can support. Um, so recommend an episode to a friend if you've got a friend that's a writer, if you've got a friend that's interested in getting into the shamanic side. Or the ideas of Carl Jung is all that's available at the moment. But there's going to be an episode, I'd say at least one episode a month, and I'm going to try and aim for one every 2 weeks once it's up and running, and once this kind of batch of guests gets released, then it's going to grow and grow and grow. So um, yes, you'll see stickers around Bristol. You'll see stickers about, and that will be my little weird way of marketing. Not sure if anyone looks at stickers or pays attention to them, but I like it's kind of like the hidden way of marketing, just like the hidden ideas in society. So, yeah, everything's going to follow the theme of connection and hidden, you know, the hidden reality behind things. Um, Okay, nice. I hope you're having a great summer. And take care of yourselves. And we'll check in with you next time. Got some great guests coming up. Um, don't want to talk too much about them at the moment, um, but yeah, really amazing guests, really amazing ideas, lots of different things. Yeah, just waiting for it all the ball to get rolling, really. So yeah, take care and see you soon.